let us say at the very least that maybe we can agree to define art as in fact being something that is fluid. Art implies movement. But art is also something that is fundamentally changing, particularly from one century to the next. Our definition of art has evolved over time in good and significant ways, I would argue. When I think of a neighborhood, I imagine a place with a geography, boundaries, edges. Usually there's a center of some sort. I do, of course, think like an urban planner. That is my calling. So I may have a tendency to over-rationalize, to try and impose order where there is in fact none. But I can stretch myself a bit. I also think of neighborhoods as being fluid, changing, evolving, having meaning. A neighborhood, too, is subjective. We do all take our neighborhoods a little bit differently, don't we? How is it that you take yours? You might take it as a grid. A grid to planners obsessed with efficiencies is appealing because a grid is very rational. It's a rational approach to land division. You can go directly from one point to another. In fact, a grid allows you the shortest distance between 2 points, whether you're on foot, in a car, or taking public transit. But you may take your neighborhood vertical. You might take your neighborhood with a view. In some places, view is a great commodity, and it in fact defines the value of a place. Or you might in fact like your neighborhood predictable and the same, with loops and lollipops, with a double carport. You might like to know that everyone on the street has a mom and a dad and 2 kids sleeping peacefully in bed. Now, my 2 children, I can tell you, would much prefer their neighborhood to be puppeted. Or you might, too, take your neighborhood with a dose of nostalgia. A new urbanist neighborhood. Who in fact doesn't want to live in Pleasantville? On the absolute contrary, you might in fact take your neighborhood desperate. And you might take it desperate because you have no choice to take it any other way. But even a desperate neighborhood, even a neighborhood that you may not choose, may in fact have hidden riches, may in fact have a strong sense of community. Now, I want to keep things very simple here, but if we search for the art in our neighborhood, I'm sure that we will likely find only patterns. Patterns that have a certain beauty, no doubt, but mostly we will just find patterns, simple, albeit pretty patterns. The images I have just walked through are patterns, ways of configuring a place based on a system, on a set of values, and an understanding or an expectation of ways that we want to live. But see, neighborhoods are not simply patterns on a page, and we do great harm as planners when we believe that they can mistakenly be transcribed from an image on a page into something that ultimately is intended to warm and delight. An empty street, whether it's a grid or it's green or it's gilded, at the end of the day it's still just an empty street. Neighborhoods at their best are not simply patterns. Neighborhoods are at their best when they are in fact complex. And neighborhoods are at their best when they are complex in movement, in use, and in the kinds of people that they attract. When we talk about complex movement, of course, we're talking about a whole variety of ways to move about, whether it's walking, cycling, transit, cab, rolling, or taking a car. When we talk about complexity in use, we're talking about places where we can live, where we can work, where we can recreate, celebrate. And when we talk about people, we're talking about people young and old, people from afar, people from near, people owning, people renting. Despite their complexity, and our inability to reduce a neighborhood to a kit of parts, we do still find a way to define and name them. We want to understand them and give them meaning. This has something to do, I suspect, with belonging. Ah, yes. The art of neighborhood at its core is about belonging. So neighborhoods must, in fact, be peopled. We love our neighborhoods in Toronto. We really do. We love our neighborhoods and they love us back. A great neighborhood can be planned, but its best parts are the human interventions which define it, which give a sterile name a ring. And these are not the purview of city planners, but rather the purview of the people who live here. Because a neighborhood is and lives and breathes as it is inhabited, much like our art.